Good morning, Rangers. We're going to do a quick lesson with multiplying with decimals. Before we do that, I would just like to go back and review how we add and subtract decimals. Remember, the most important part when we add or subtract decimals is to line up the decimals. Now, when we line up the decimals, we're doing the same thing as when we add and subtract fractions and have to have a common denominator. We don't add fourths to sevenths. We can't do that until we have a common denominator. In the same way, we can only add tenths with tenths, hundredths with hundredths, thousandths with thousands, so on and so forth. Now, as we move to multiplying with decimals, the rules are a little bit different. When multiplying decimals, we do not need to line up the decimal. We are going to deal with the place value or the decimal at the very end of the problem. Example 1. I'm going to give us a whole number times a decimal. So we will have 5 times 2 and 8 tenths. Now, where we may have went to a calculator beforehand, we know that we are able to do this with some practice and hard work. So that's what we're going to shoot for. We're going to shoot for being able to do this problem on paper without having to turn to a calculator. Now, what I'm going to start by doing is writing this problem vertically, which means I'm going to write it from top to bottom. Now, I'm going to start with the 2 and 8 tenths. You might say, but Miss Flute, that's smaller. That's smaller than 5. And I would say, absolutely, you are totally correct. However, I'm going to just worry about how many digits are in the number right now. When I multiply, I just want the one with more digits on top. So 2 and 8 tenths has 2 digits, the 2 and the 8. 5 only has 1 digit itself. So I set up my multiplication problem. Now, we are going to start by taking our 5 and distribute it to the 8 and then to the 2. So 5 times 8 is, good, 40. I have our 0 here, and just like regular multiplication, we're going to put the 4 on top of the 2. 5 times 2 is 10, plus the 4 we had carried over, so that is a total of 14. Now, you'll notice my answer right now is 140. If we look back at the problem, that does not seem to make sense. 5 times 2 and 8 tenths. Well, 2 and 8 tenths is about 3. So 5 times 3 should be around 15. 140 is way too far off. If you can predict just by our estimation on the right-hand side of the screen, our answer is probably going to be, instead of 140, is probably going to be 14. Now, let's look at why that is. We have a number that is in the tenths place, correct? 1/10. That 8 is in the tenths place. The 5, that's a whole number, right? So if we were multiplying a tenth place value times 1, aren't we just still going to get tenth? Because anything times 1 gives us that original answer. So 1/10 times 1 gave us 1/10. And our lovely announcements. Thank you, Ms. Chiton. We have 1/10 times 1, which means our answer is still going to be in the 10th place value. So our 0 is in the 10th place value. So we have 14 and 0 tenths, which we know is the same thing as saying 14. All right. Hopefully that was okay. Hopefully it's not totally confusing at this point, but we'll try again. We'll see if I can't confuse you yet. So let's try the next one. I'm going to give you not a whole number, but I'm going to give you 2 decimals so that we can try to figure out this place value thing when we're multiplying decimals. We are going to try 7 and 4/10 times 3 and 2/10. Now I'm going to again line these up. Well, not line these up. I'm going to write these out going vertically. I'm going to do 7 and 4/10 times 3 and 2/10. And right now, you might be saying to yourself, but we don't have to line up decimals. That's what you told us. You're right, I did. In this case, they line up only because they're both in tenths place value. That is the only reason you don't need to line up place value when you multiply. We are going to start with the 2, and we're going to distribute it between the 4 to start off with. So 2 times 4 is 8. Then the 7, so 2 times 7 is, great, 14. So I have 148. Now we are going to move over to the 3. So we moved over a place value. Remember, that's when we put our 0 as a placeholder. All right, because this wasn't the first number. We have to move over a place value. We add that placeholder 0, and now we can multiply as normal. So 3 times 4 now is, good, 12. I keep holding my pen there too long. So 12, I'm going to carry that 1. Now we have 3 times 7, which is, great, 21, plus the 1 we carried over, that is 22. With any multiplication problem, now we can add those two products together. So we have 8 plus 0, which is 8. We have 4 plus 2, which is 6. 2 plus 1, 3. And 2, bring that down. We're at 2,368. Hopefully you're like me and say that does not make sense for an answer. And you'd be right. Again, if I go up here to my original problem, I have about 7 times 3, which should be, well, it should be over 21, but still in that range. So 2,368 is way off base. Now, look at here. We have a 10th place value for the 7 and 4/10, and we have another 10th place value for the 3 and 2/10. What's 10 times 10? Good, 100. That is going to be our place value. Hundredths, a 10th times 10th equals 100th. So our 100th place value, we know, is 2 places over from the decimal place. So we're going to put it right here. 23 and 68 hundredths. Does 23 make sense with our problem? Yes, it does. 7 times 3 was about 21. We knew it would have to be over that because we rounded down. So 23 and 68 hundredths makes great sense. We're going to try one more problem, and I want you to multiply this by yourself. Don't feel like you have to rush. I want you to work on your accuracy. Remember, we are still practicing, so it's okay to make a mistake or get it wrong. However, we know that it's not okay to not try. So here is the problem I am going to give you. So 4 and 18 hundredths times 5 and 6/10. Teachers, if you want to pause this for a couple of minutes until they get it solved, that would be great. Okay, so hopefully you've had enough time to solve this problem. We have 4 and 18 hundredths times 5 and 6/10. I am going to put 4 and 18 hundredths first, only because it has 3 digits, and my 5 and 6/10 only has 2 digits. Remember, a digit is a single number. So 4 and 1800ths times 5 and 6/10. Did I line up place values? No. And notice they did not line up automatically because we have one in the hundredths, one in the tenths place value. Next, we are going to start with our 6, and we're going to distribute it to each number in the 4 and 1800ths. So 6 times 8 is 48. Next, I'm going to take 6 times 1, which is 6, plus the 4 we carried over, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is 10. Carry the 1. Last is 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 1 left over. Yes, that's 25. All right. That's nice and messy. Woohoo! So we have so far 2,508, but we're not done. We've only just distributed the 6. Now we need to move over a place value and multiply this 5 times each number in the 4 and 18/10. So we're going to add a place value holder, our 0, because we're moving over a place value as we're multiplying. Now we have 5 times 8, which is 40. Carry the 4. 5 times 1 is 5, plus extra 4, that's 9. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to circle that step. Then we have 5 times 4, which is 20. Let's go ahead and add those two products together. 8 plus 0 is 8, 0 plus 0 is 0. 9 plus 5 is 14. 2 plus 1 is 3. And 2 is just 2. So we have 23,408. All right. That's probably not going to be our answer because it would not make sense. We have 4 times about 6 if we look back at our original problem. 4 times, if we round up to 6, that's 24. So our answer should be about 24. You might already know, just based on that estimation, where the decimal point goes, but let's back that up using our place values. 4 and 1800ths was in the hundredths, right? That was in the hundredths. 5 and 6/10 was in the tenths. Well, when you take 100 times 10, what do you get? Great, 1,000. So our answer is going to be in the thousandths place value, which is the first 3 place values on the right. So of the decimal. So we have thousandths, hundredths, tenths, and there is our decimal point, if I can get it there. A whole bunch of other lines and squiggles just to make it confusing for you. So we have 23 and 408 thousandths. Now, as a shortcut, I want to show you this. How many place values did we use for the 4 and 1800ths? We used 2, didn't we? We moved over 2. With the 5 and 6/10, we used the place value 1 time, so a total of 1, 2, 3. Well, guess how many places over it's going to be? 1, 2, 3. Okay? Once we start getting better at this, a little bit faster, that shortcut's going to definitely help you. Now I have 3 problems on a little sheet I want you to tape into your composition notebook, and I would like you to do those 3 problems as your practice problems, and we'll discuss them in class.